All right, today we're diving into something you probably never think about. That is, until it starts to hurt. I'm talking about your salivary glands. And trust me, these little powerhouses are way more important than you might imagine.
So, have you ever had that? You wake up, there's this weird, painful, swollen spot right in your jaw, and you're just like, what is that? It's actually a super common experience, and more often than not, the culprit is one of your salivary glands deciding to act up.
And get this, to give you a sense of just how hard they're working, every single day, you, a healthy adult, produce about 1 full liter of saliva. Yeah, a whole liter. That's a ton of work happening completely behind the scenes, and it's just absolutely critical for your health.
Okay, so before we get into what goes wrong, we gotta understand what they're supposed to be doing right. Let's talk about these unsung heroes. Now, you actually have hundreds of teeny tiny salivary glands all over your mouth, but it's really 3 main pairs that are doing almost all of the heavy lifting.
And check out this breakdown, because it's pretty interesting. Those submandibular glands, the ones right under your jaw, they are the absolute workhorses. We're talking almost 70% of all your saliva comes from them. Then you've got the parotid glands in your cheeks. They chip in about 1/4 of it. And the little guys, the sublingual glands under your tongue, they make up the rest.
So what's all that spit for anyway? Well, it's not just about keeping your mouth from feeling like the Sahara Desert. I mean, sure, it helps you lubricate food so you can swallow, and it actually kicks off digestion right there in your mouth, starting to break down carbs. But here's the really cool part. It's also your mouth's bodyguard. It's got antibacterial properties to fight off germs, and it even helps neutralize stomach acid. Super important stuff.
But of course, this finely tuned system doesn't always run like clockwork. So, what happens when it breaks down? What are the very first clues that something's up?
Usually the signs are pretty straightforward. You've got pain, you've got swelling. Pretty obvious. Sometimes, though, it's more about flow control. You could have way too much saliva, that's called sialorrhea, or the opposite, a really, really dry mouth, which is known as xerostomia. And hey, even a weird change in how things taste can be a clue.
Okay, now this is the key clue, for real. When you go to a doctor, one of the very first things they're going to ask is, when does it hurt? And if you say, it's right when I start to eat, bingo. That is the classic textbook sign of a blockage. Think about it, it's like a clogged pipe. The gland is trying to pump out saliva, but it's got nowhere to go, so it backs up and hurts.
And the detective work doesn't stop there. Where the swelling is tells a story too. Is it just on one side? Well, that probably points to a local problem, right? Like one blocked duct, or maybe a tumor. But if you've got swelling on both sides, now the doctor's thinking bigger. That usually points to a systemic issue, something affecting your whole body, like an autoimmune disease.
So, with these clues in hand, how do doctors crack the case? Let's get into the investigation. We'll look at the tools they use to figure out exactly what's going on inside those glands.
The first steps are surprisingly simple, very hands-on, but super effective. First, the doctor just looks. They're looking for any swelling, checking if your face is symmetrical. Then, they'll gently feel the glands from the outside. That's palpation. And the last step, it sounds a little weird, is called duct milking. They gently press on the gland to see if saliva actually comes out of the duct in your mouth and what it looks like. Is it clear? Is it cloudy? Okay, so if the hands-on exam isn't enough, it's time to bring in the gadgets. One of them is called a sialography. Think of it like a GPS for your saliva ducts. They inject this special dye and then take an X-ray. Suddenly, they have a perfect roadmap of that whole duct system, and they can see exactly where any blockages, stones, or traffic jams are.
Another amazing tool they have is the ultrasound. And this one's great because it's totally non-invasive. It just uses sound waves to get a live, moving picture of what's happening inside the gland. It's perfect for spotting things like cysts or masses or inflammation, all in real time and with zero radiation.
So once all the evidence is in, pretty much every salivary gland problem can be filed into one of 2 folders. To make it simple, just think of it like this. You've got the case of the blockage, where something is physically stuck, and the case of the gland, where the factory itself is on the fritz.
All right, let's dive into that first folder, the case of the blockage. Just like it sounds, this is all about something physically getting in the way, a roadblock in the system.
So what's causing these traffic jams? Well, the number one suspect is usually a salivary stone, a little thing called a sialith. But it's not the only possibility. The duct itself could just be too narrow, that's called a stricture. Or you can have these thick mucus plugs gumming up the works. And yeah, sometimes even a tiny foreign body can get in there and block things up.
And for treatment, it's all about location, location, location. Seriously, if a stone is right near the opening of the duct, a doctor might just be able to massage it out right there in the office. Easy peasy. But
If that stone is stuck way back, deep inside the gland, that's a whole different ballgame. The treatment gets a lot more complicated, and sometimes they might even have to remove the gland itself.
Okay, let's switch gears to that second folder, the case of the gland. With these problems, the pipes are totally clear. The issue is with the factory itself.
And these problems can show up as total opposites. On one hand, you could have xerostomia. That's dry mouth. It can be a side effect from tons of different medications or a sign of something like Sjögren Syndrome. Then on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got sialorrhea, which is drooling. You see it in teething babies, sure, but it can also be linked to certain neurological issues.
You know, a really classic example of one of these factory problems is the mumps. It's a virus that goes right for the parotid glands, causing that signature, painful swelling right in front of your ears. Thankfully, we don't see it nearly as much anymore thanks to vaccines.
And hey, remember we talked about that clue of having swelling on both sides? This is where Sjögren syndrome comes in. It's an autoimmune disease, which means your body's immune system gets confused and starts attacking itself. In this case, it attacks its own moisture-producing glands. So not just your salivary glands, but your tear glands too. And that leads to the classic combo of super dry eyes and a painfully dry mouth.
Okay, so we've gone through all the detective work, the clues, the suspects. So what's the path to recovery? Let's wrap this all up and talk about treatments and the big takeaways you need to remember.
All right, so if you remember nothing else, remember this. 1. Pain when you eat? Your first thought should be blockage. 2. Swelling on both sides? Your brain should go to systemic issue. 3. Don't forget the simple stuff. Seriously, just drinking enough water is huge for your gland health. And finally, modern medicine is just incredible. They have tools now like siloendoscopy where they can go in with a tiny camera, find the problem, and fix it all in one go. Pretty amazing.
So I gotta ask, after hearing all this, what do you think is the most surprising job your salivary glands have? For me, it has to be that they're basically your mouth's silent bodyguards, you know? Fighting off germs 24/7 with every single drop of saliva. It's just a wild reminder of all the incredible, complex stuff happening inside our bodies that we never give a second thought to. It really makes you appreciate these little unsung heroes, just quietly doing their job day in and day out.